conflict. Hope you're having a good day. I'm taking a long walk today, just recording on a Zoom field recorder. Not sure what I'm going to do with this. But lately I've been auditing or paying attention to, reading, listening to the right side. I'm basically a Karl Popper, open society kind of Eleanor Roosevelt Declaration of Universal Human Rights type of person. And I think like Jamie Wheal, so every time I read something I get in my inbox from him, it bugs me because that's how my brain works when I'm talking to myself, and then he writes it so well. And it's like, yeah, great minds think alike. No, it's just that our minds are paying attention to similar things for various reasons. Over the years, you look at this, that, and the other thing, and all of the things you pay attention to influence you. You'll get ideas that you have to be open to it, or why would you bother reading about it or studying it or learning it, whether it's a skill or learning about history or science. If you're absolutely not open to it, then you're not going to go there because it's a waste of time. You know what you believe. You don't need to look at that stuff. I know lots of people like that. Don't tell me I'm not interested. I'm comfortable with my worldview. And I don't need Bom dia. Looking at the painters, everybody's in their 50s and 60s that do work around here. If you want to put in a new shower in your bathroom, you can't get help to take it out because young people don't do that work anymore. And the people who do the work are extremely busy and they're old. So you learn how to do it yourself and you ask a neighbor to help you with the heavy lifting. Or you keep searching for somebody. They were talking about needing labor, foreign labor in England, and they need foreign labor here just to pick the crops. Okay, I diverge. So you decide you're going to listen to some Republican podcasts like The American Mind, see where these people are coming from. And of course, they're reasonable people, soft-spoken, rational. They've got good arguments for everything. I disagree with most of them, but it's so partisan. And, these kind of blatant, narrow partisan takes, whether it's from a Democrat, a Libertarian, or a Republican, or whatever, a communist, a socialist, it puts me off because it's so biased. And the real world just doesn't function that way. So anyway, about Jamie Wheal, I was reading a piece where he was talking about creationism and intelligent design versus evolution, not just the Darwinian language, but the modern take on evolution. And how we are pattern-seeking animals, our pattern recognition system is very powerful. So we seek patterns. We also very seldomly consciously activate our skepticism when things are emotionally feeling good. So he talks about dopamine. Anyway, it's so good. I'll just put the link up. I posted it on Globe Hackers Facebook and mine's at William T. in case you haven't seen it, but yeah, great minds. We pay attention to the same thing. I'm not saying my mind is great. And we keep learning and growing, and therefore we keep changing subtly. I am what I am. It's controversial, but yeah, your genes do matter. The genetic lottery is what makes you unique. There's a lot of nature nurture in there as well. Your life experiences and so on, very important. Especially when you think about gene expression, the plasticity of that. So yeah, if you're brought up in a terribly stressful situation, it's gonna change the way these things emerge and develop. But it's important, it's a big deal, all things being equal. Although it's controversial. Honest scientists look at both sides, the whole picture. I hate to say ecologically, but you know, in terms of the whole total living system and how it interacts and interrelates. All of this complexity produces outcomes. If you're more flexible, you will change. So I listen to the right wing and the die-in-the-wool Republicans. And it's clear to me they're utterly biased, which is fine. So are the Democrats. But for them, it's like the whole January 6th thing was just LARPing. It was just a thing that got out of hand, a spontaneous outburst of feeling and free speech. There were no agents in the group. There was no rhyme or reason, no plan. And it's the only thing the Democrats have got, because America is wrecked, don't you know? Since Trump lost, everything's gone to hell in a handbasket. And it's all the Democrats' fault. So that's pretty easy, isn't it? And of course, if it was the other way around, it would all be Trump's fault. I suffered from Trump derangement syndrome, like a lot of people. I'm not proud of it, but I always thought from way before he was president that the guy's just a con man. Yeah, he's borderline pathological narcissist, a goofball, good on TV, on a TV show, reality TV show, but you know, you're not going to take that guy serious based on his track record in business and whatnot. He couldn't manage his way out of a paper bag, but he's really good at communicating and leveraging other people's money, bank loans, the old real estate genes. He's got some talent for sure, but if that's your benevolent king who doesn't know shit about any other domain and operates on a very simple emotional level, also it's like all about me. So I don't think a benevolent king is in his job saying it's all about me. Yeah, if you want to look at Salazar and the way he behaved, his lifestyle, he was very committed on deep levels, whether you hate him or not. but different breed of cat. He was also very intelligent, and I think a great deal more humble for a person in his position, but I've only read 2 books on the guy, so what do I know? Anyway, so that's their point of view, and if Curtis Yarvin says, well, we have democracy and democracy doesn't work, well, how do you define work? Some kind of utopian, idyllic thing? If you want to look at Evola, Carlyle, and Strauss, why didn't the universe of man take them up on it and make it so? Why did it fail? Did it work? You can talk about the way things were organized before the Industrial Revolution and point to the fact that there was 100,000 years of human life, way more than that before we settled down, and something worked because we're here. So the reproductive system worked, the ecology that supported us worked. Everything worked, therefore I am. So then we found fire, then we found crustaceans or whatever, then we did this, that, and the other thing. Then we started chasing animals until they were exhausted and we could easily harvest them for food and tools and clothing. So things changed. And just because things worked in that way for human beings for 100,000 years doesn't mean that we should go back to that. Although I do believe that circumstances will eventually dictate that we go back to something like that. If we keep being stupid, biased, narrow-minded people. And of course, you always bringing up the game theory, multipolar traps, tragedy of the commons, ecology, environmental stuff, the health of the system. And as Jamie pointed out, things emerge from the system and the structure. He didn't use that language. I'm using that language. But it is what it is. This is the way the game evolved and manifested. And this is the way we play. And so everybody's incentivized to play in a certain way. Otherwise, you don't get the house and the car and the woman. I'm drinking yogurt with protein. So anyway, that's a very good article. He mentioned the Astral Codex article. You should read that. I've read it a few times. It's really good. But I've said personally, it doesn't mean I'm holy, but for a long time I've thought, well, this is the game we developed and this is how we play it. Don't blame the player, blame the game. But I have all these chicken is the egg questions and forest is the trees are the forest questions, which basically recognize that these things are whole dynamic systems. They're not just a straight line of causality that's very clean. The cue ball hit the 8 ball in a certain way, due to the skill of the player, which gave the 8-ball a certain spin that hit the 5-ball, gave that a certain spin that directed it into the side pocket. There you go. It's all explained. But real life is messier, more chaotic, more complex, and there's a lot more things going on. So anyone with a certain modicum of agency is participating and having their tiny little effect. Butterflies flapping their wings in the Amazon. And what results is what's here, but the overall patternicity or schema of the game is fairly well developed. The incentives are in place. People do what they do to win the game or to play well, to achieve something that they want. Also, I was talking to my friend the other day and I was saying, you know, how much you got your free will determinism and so on. When you hit a wall in your life, do you panic and figure out that you're trapped and panic and try to figure out how you're going to get over the wall or through the wall or whatever? Or do you pause, step back, and reflect because you have a memory, because you've paid attention on all the choices that got you to that wall? And you recognize that it wasn't just your choices, it was all the things influencing you to make the choices that you thought you had made that brought you to the wall. And so you can back up, pause, reconsider, reevaluate everything. And maybe you can say, well, if I just go back, turn left, turn right, and go straight, and then turn left again, the next time when I turn around and come back, I'm going to turn right instead of left. And maybe I'll get out of this maze. Of course, life's complex. You know, a person might ask himself, why am I on my 3rd divorce? Or the person might say, I had a Ukrainian wife, now I'm going to have a Filipino wife because I can afford it. We'll have a prenup. It'll be interesting to go from Eastern Europe to Asia, and I'll see how that works out for me. And if it becomes uncomfortable, I'll release that prenup and trade this wife in for another one. Or maybe you're on your 3rd divorce or 2nd divorce because you drink too much. You're an alcoholic. And when you drink too much, you're nasty or too lazy to work or something. And it puts a lot of stress and strain on the family, on your wife. And you have a lot of discord, fighting, and then you gotta get divorced, right? One person says, I've had enough. The other person is like, well, the bitch, you know, these women, they always get over on me. And that person may not have the ability to pause, reflect, think about all the decisions he thinks he made, and also think about all the Gabor Mate stresses in his life, in his world that made him make these bad decisions. So it's his responsibility to fix it, but it's also his responsibility to understand what's his responsibility and what isn't. To give himself a break, reflect, remember, and try to find a way out of this pattern that isn't working, that doesn't make him happy, that destroys families. And but it's a lot more easy and it's dopamine rich to just get emotional at what lights you up and say that it's the Democrats' fault. If only we had a king, everything would work. Well, right now the airports work, the mRNA vaccine worked, And by the way, all this stuff about the, the conspiracy and the data, the science-based medicine community was always updating the information, the data. Maybe not fast enough, maybe not all of it for some reason, but most of it. And we're acknowledging in your face breakthrough infections and the limits of the vaccine. It's not a panacea, it's not a cure-all, and all that kind of stuff. And yet, it's much more satisfying to say that no, Fauci and everybody else is the reason. They're pulling the wool over our eyes. They're using us as guinea pigs, and we get excited about that. It's much more fun to have a supervillain in charge. But like Jamie alluded to, and I've said this over and over again, if you're going to do that constantly, find the supervillain and blame it all on the bitch or whatever, then you're surrendering your agency, your sovereignty, your hope, your power, the possibility of your growing and learning, becoming a better person, and you're laying it all at the doorstep of somebody else. It's not my responsibility. How can you pause? How can you reflect? How can you look back at your choices and decide that next time you'll do something different because you recognize what made you sick or inoperable and what you did to kind of bolster that, and what it is you might be able to do to get out of it. So yeah, is it God going to fill your soul? Is it the 12 steps in one circumstance? Is it education? Is it cognitive behavioral psychology? Is it meditation, mindfulness meditation? Is it diet, exercise, and good sleep patterns? Is it a different crowd of friends? Whatever. Why don't you think about that and see what you come up with and give something else a try. If it's not working, you might want to give something else a try. That's one thing I appreciated from good old Brett Weinstein, who annoys me to no end. But he said, if you just had your fourth car accident, maybe you're not as good a driver as you think. Like, who's the best driver you ever saw? And you got 3 DUIs and 2 accidents. Maybe you're not that good. Just saying, that was a good example. Yeah, so that's basically what I'm thinking right now. And it never ends, no matter how hard the majority of normies or whatever, commonsensical people think, when they're just being kind of calm and collected and questioning their ideas, thoughts, and feelings and beliefs a little bit, just to kind of reflect, look back, remember, see what the results of all of this really are, understand the complexity, understand the depth, understand your own ignorance of most things, and so on, and keep going like that. And then reevaluating and thinking, what can I do? Where do I have any power or agency or hope? And how can I tap into that to contribute to a solution or a better day, a nicer day, a kinder, gentler day, So if we don't have more and more people willing to engage in this kind of reflection and understand that their will isn't all that, it's mitigated by a million factors buffeting us about, and it's so easy to go to the familiar dopamine well to feel good. We're not going to do the work. If we don't have people willing to do the work for themselves, in the community with others, in concert and collaboration, then what happens is we just become more and more dislocated, disjointed, disconnected, and we, wow, this is beautiful here, man. I'm overlooking some orchards and whatnot. It's really pretty. I think I'll take out my camera, get a shot of this. Sometimes I just don't want to put all the effort into the video editing and uploading and all that stuff. I just want to say something. I just want to share something. Oh. What I'm seeing is really pretty country. The rolling hills of the Silver Coast in Portugal, orchards, trees, farms. It's just pretty. Simple, nice. So, yeah, so you get together with your group and you blame it all on the other guy. In the meantime, like I said, we forget that we need each other, how much we need each other to pick the crops, to do the work, to the plumbing, and all the little simple dirty jobs and crafts that we depend on and take for granted, never think twice about. Now this is always fun because I get to a certain spot and you wonder if you can get out or if there's a fence or whatever, but you just keep going. You get lost, you get to a dead end, and that's how you map your world. Your own internal GPS of experience and memory. And also you recognize that your memory is always being overwritten and modified as you go along. It's not data on a computer hard drive that represents an actual event. It's fungible, it's plastic, it shifts. So you don't take your memory for granted, but you have it, you know what you learned from it. You make your GPS the next time you go for a walk like this, you know where you're going. And you can turn left instead of right because you want to be lost again, because you want to expand or add to your map, your knowledge of the topography, the place where you live. I do that in cities all the time. One of my favorite things to do. Next week I'll go to Lisbon and I'll wander around and play parts of Lisbon that I've never been to, hoping to discover something nice. Give me novelty or give me death. Novelty is a great aphrodisiac, or, sorry, kind of a male pun there. Please forgive me. Anyway, yeah, you can build on everything, right? But you have to understand that you live in an ecosystem with all the people you're pointing the finger at. So point your finger one way, there's four fingers pointing back at you. So remember that whether you like it or not, you're living and working with the other side, and they're vital to how things work. So if you're Curtis Yarving saying none of this works, but this new thing will work, this new type of I don't know if it's Mussolini corporatism, you know, dictator. Mussolini's got great quotes about that. But why did Mussolini lose? Why did Hitler lose? Why did Stalin, well, he had a stroke and died, but his thing, however evil it was, worked for quite a while, didn't it? And then it fell apart because it was on shaky ground. Fear and death and murder. So I don't think the fear, death, and murder thing works that good. You have to figure out a way to unleash the benevolent king, but even if you do that, The benevolent king. Let's say you have a basketball team. You want a deep bench. You've got Steph Curry, a bunch of other great players, but you need some people on the bench that are really, really good and can step in. So in our world, if everything doesn't work and it's all fucked up and stupid, where are you going to get your benevolent king? Where are you going to get the guy with the experience of Caesar in his context, in his time, that can step in? And then who's on the bench when he gets knifed to death? Who can step forward, maintain what he built, and add to it in a good way? Or do you just say, well, Caesar was great, but I'm in power now, and I'm gonna toast everything that Caesar did, kind of like what Trump's attitude towards anything, Obama. Let's just tank it all. Put like a pet salesman in charge of energy department or something, and destroy this institution, that institution. Why? Because Obama had his dirty little hands all over it, and everybody knows what a terrible person he is. No continuity of institutions, just the king and his desires and word. It's a simplistic straw man critique, but it's real. So why didn't that work? And what's not working? I'm walking on a road here that presumably was paved by the government. Yeah, the bureaucrats, they're not the best, but they sincerely try to do their jobs. So I get my health number, I get my ID, I buy my real estate. It all works. Is it ideal? I don't know. Would it have been better if Salazar was still in charge? And then you have these goofballs who think they have a better idea. You have to send the secret police out after them. After a while, the secret police are no secret. They're just the guys looking over your shoulder, making sure that you toe the line. And if you don't, you're in trouble. Arrested, tortured, put in solitary confinement. Then you have flight, people leaving the country. Nowadays, people leave Portugal for money, because that's the thing. Mammon, the devil. Is it really the internet, or is it the money that these businesses generate for a small, tiny number of people? I'm young, I'm educated. Why would I get paid X amount in Portugal when I can go to Germany or the UK or somewhere else and make 3 times more money? And if I manage things better, I can try to not spend too much, and I can actually get ahead in the world. Well, if you stayed here, you wouldn't need so much money, and you could still probably save 10% or 20% of what you were earning and put that savings to work to increase your wealth. But it would be slower, be smaller world. You wouldn't probably have as much stuff. It wouldn't be as exciting. So yeah, the young people got to go out and do stuff, and then when they go out, they get experience, and hopefully if they want to come back to Portugal, they have this wealth of experience. They speak 4 languages fluently. They're really cool people, cosmopolitan, open-minded, and they do something in their home country that is great. You do one tiny little thing every day, and if you're consistent and hang in there, it winds up being great. What's wrong with that? So, I'm not going to criticize the people who leave, but if you need to import labor, you got to do it. What's the alternative? Until some guy makes $1 trillion on AI robots that do all the farming, we're going to need those laborers. And then once the AI robots are doing all the farming, we got to figure out what to do with all these people, especially young men who have way too much energy, testosterone, and want to do crazy things, take risks. Got to give these people something to do. So what is it? Religion? Dogma? Beliefs in ghosts in the machine or whatever it is? Because that's your soul, that invisible thing. The homunculus is the real deal. The rest of it's all just, Satan. I can't think like that. I don't think it gets you anywhere. So what's it going to be? You don't need the money. Resources are managed well. Everyone can eat. And you'd have to say, well, yeah, even the Africans and the Indians and the Indonesians and the Filipinos and the Chinese, yeah, even them. They deserve to live a dignified life. Or you can say, no, I'm putting a wall around Idaho, and we're going to have a kind of modern, green, enlightened fascist state, an ethno-state. You got to pass the test, a civics test and some philosophy examinations to determine that you think the right thoughts. And then you can live here because we know the truth and they don't, but at least we have a wall. And then you can deal with the contradictions inherent in trading with other people who are evil Satanists or not of your 23andMe profile. Well, it's God's work. We have to do it. Sometimes you have to deal with the devil to do God's work. And you kind of have an FLDS birth rate, got 2 sister wives. I made 23 children. I did my job. Repopulating Idaho with white people. I don't know who thinks like that, but some people do. And the contradiction is, over there in Washington State, you got all these other people. What are they doing over there? And they may be living their high-tech lives and all that stuff, postmodern, singularity kind of thing. And they're obviously evil, crazy, satanic weirdos. But maybe their thing works for them, even though it's all wrong. But the sewage system works, the school system works, the healthcare system works. People get to make their guitars and ukuleles in peace, weave their wonderful textiles, do whatever they do because the robots are doing all the work. The robots work. The engineers that produce the chips for the robots work. The mechanical engineers and material science people who make the robots work. And the robot works. Got all kinds of nice little kill switches in case the robot wants to be mean, go against the people. It all works, but it's satanic. It's wrong, don't you know? It's not traditional. I want to know what Viking thought was traditional. Did traditional change from generation to generation? Well, gosh, they sure did Christianize after a while, didn't they? Despite the fact that they had a presence all over Europe. They had kings all over the place. Ireland, Francia, everywhere. They were in the Ukraine, they were in the Middle East, they were down in the Iberian Peninsula. They were everywhere. Whoa, cool. So, pretty successful. And yet they changed. They went from being pagans, polytheists, or whatever you want to call them. They traded in Thor for Jesus. because when they conquered all these places, those places influenced them. And then you have one Viking king who says, man, you guys are crazy. You really screwed up. You got to be traditional Vikings. This nouvelle monotheist kind of crazy weakling dying on the cross for your sins. Give me a break. And so he struggles and fights to get people back into the fold. Meanwhile, hundreds of years pass and the Christian thing becomes the traditional thing. And then you're part of Christendom. Maybe you have some Viking genes, but you're on one of those crusades in the Middle Ages with King Arthur fighting the Saracens, blasphemers. And that's your thing. What happened to that Viking blood of yours? Diluted by these fantasies and delusions. So this thing keeps happening, you know. Pick a period of history and look back at it. You'll see slow-paced change gradually becoming faster-paced because of technology and tools and science. And all the while, we don't slow down, reflect, pause, access our memory, understand all the complicated things that happen to get us into this situation, and then try to tap into some wisdom. My thing is, if we could slow down a little bit, but our incentives are aligned with making as much money as we can. I want to be a trillionaire when I'm 30, because then I can spend the rest of my life saving the world and having fun. I don't want to work for 50 years and invest my money wisely and retire and have 10, 20, 30 years reading books or whatever. To hell with that. Move fast and break things. That's the thing. So you throw that kind of wise reflection in the garbage pail and say, to heck with that. I don't need that shit. We're gonna do this and see what happens. And then we'll look back at the data, evaluate second, third order effects, externalities. Oops, we blew up the wedding party. Despite the satellites and the comms and the intel and the professionalism of the soldiers. Oops. Well, we'll learn from that mistake. But maybe you're kind of giving up some wisdom when you learn from mistakes like that. The other thing, love him or hate him, Guy McPherson, climate change, hand-waving, freak-outery guy. He learns from very good sources. Experts, scientists, whatever. One thing we have to accept is that extinction is the rule, not the exception on this planet. So every other human species that graced this planet over millions and millions and millions of years is gone. We're the last human species on this planet, and our behavior now will determine how long we're going to be here. Because It's not just the environmental impacts on ecology, like let's eat all the birds and cut down all the trees, and then oops, we can't live here anymore, and row our boat to another island. This is Buckminster Fuller's Spaceship Earth. It's the only one we've got. We need this gravity to live, we need water to live, this kind of atmosphere to breathe. It's not controversial. Call it the Goldilocks zone, call it intelligently designed, whatever. But if we screw up our home, we're dead. And the difference between ignorant people who didn't understand the consequences of cutting down all the trees and eating all the birds will, they didn't know any better, but we do. And yet we still do it. Why? Because we live in a profits first culture. And we want to move fast, make a lot of money, whether it's through dealing some new designer drug or dealing opioids as a corporation, or creating a metaverse where these people will spend all their time earning tokens to buy some hard drive space that has an animation program on it. And they'll forget about this walking through the farmland up and down hills, growing your own food, loving your neighbor, probably even more than you love yourself, interacting with pets, family members, appreciating watching a hawk and eagle fly. The wonder of it all those things in physics that I don't understand, all that math I can't do, all those books in the humanities I haven't read, all those novels, those characters I haven't experienced, all those gaping holes in my awareness and understanding of the world and myself. That epic, never-ending mystery. And all I have to do to end my appreciation of that is die. And one day I will. And what comes next, I don't know. Will I be reborn as gut bacteria for thousands of years in a lizard or a crocodile living in the North Pole? One thing that breaks my heart, which Guy McPherson points out, love him or hate him, when our thing crashes and all of these nuclear power plants melt down, what's that going to do to the atmosphere and to life on Earth? We don't know. But I pray that when our species goes extinct, this planet is still here and still alive, teeming with life and evolution. Random mutation and survival of the fittest and so on. You're fooled by randomness, Taleb's thing, skin in the game. Caesar fought with knives before he was king. Bayesian probability theorems, all the tools of science, space telescopes, wow. All these wonderful things you could learn and explore and delve into. But it's more of a dopamine hit to point the finger at the Democrats and say, it's all their fault. All right, enough for now. Pause, reflect, look at that wall, examine your memory, try to determine what outside forces and what decisions you made got you up against that big wall there that makes you feel like you're trapped. And then reflect carefully and figure out how to get out of that trap and do something positive in the world. Bouliam tea. Out.